Basically what we were doing is looking at this. It really was around 31 to 32,000, and we kept on bubbling against it. Now, going back to the bull market of Bitcoin, my positioning is mostly neutral. I have a very tiny, like pinky finger in the short side of Bitcoin up here, just in case it fails. If it pops up, I will go heavily short around that 48 to 50 level. But remember, folks, I'm a swing trader, so I'm in and out in a few days to a week or so. Where I am now on shorting it there, in a year from now, I probably will be long because I am a longer term bull on Bitcoin. It's just I'm going to play the interim levels in between.
Bitcoin ETF has already attracted more than $2 million in its pre-sale in under 3 weeks. Investors are rushing to the pre-sale to gain exposure to the Bitcoin ETF approval by the SEC ahead of the January deadline, expecting significant 50 times returns for early adopters. Gareth Soloway, chief market strategist at InTheMoneyStocks.com, suggests that Bitcoin is poised for a substantial surge upon ETF approval. He shares his approach to navigating this development and his perspectives on stocks and the economic landscape as we approach 2024. Bitcoin rallied about 9% in November, with $38,000 proving a difficult obstacle. Buyers have repeatedly tried to maintain the price above $38,000, but the bears have held their ground. Historically, December has been a mixed month. CoinGlass data shows that in the past 5 years, Bitcoin rose only in 2020, but the extent of the rise at 46.92% was impressive. The bulls will try to replicate at least a part of that performance this year. Soloway notes a crucial range between $31,000 and $32,000 as significant support for Bitcoin during its bullish phases. Following subsequent rallies and retests, Soloway observed a breakout above $38,000, signifying potential further upside for Bitcoin. The crypto industry has been waiting for a spot Bitcoin ETF to be approved for years. Recently, blockchain data firm CryptoQuant researchers said they expect an ETF to double Bitcoin's market cap and potentially increase the overall crypto market by $1 trillion. Soloway highlighted a potential by the rumor, sell the news scenario, warning that despite the solid pre-ETF buying, there might be a post-approval sell-off akin to this market trend. Let's move towards the video to understand what this means for Bitcoin markets. Before we get started, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon for the latest updates.
So here was the key, right? Is if you look at this level down here on the charts, and again, if we extend this out, basically what we were doing is looking at this. It really was around 31 to 32,000, and we kept on bubbling against it. Now, going back to the bull market of Bitcoin, this was the push above, and then it retested. Then it broke above. We went to that 65,000 level. We came back, retested that same level again, 31,000, give or take. We then ran up again. We came down and kind of kissed it, and then finally broke lower. So what that means is this was support, right? It kept on hitting and bouncing off of it. Once we broke below it, it became resistance, right? So ultimately, once we came back up, resistance pulls back, resistance and hammers a bunch of times, pulls back, and then the breakout occurred. And what I did was, once this breakout occurred, you have to think that there's further upside on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin went to my next level here around 38,000. It's established itself. Just zooming out, you can see, and again, I'm going to erase this one line. So basically this little underbelly area here to here, that's where we've stalled out in the current price action. And look at what's created here. And I love charts. You guys know those of you that follow me and follow David, I'm all about the charts, all about the data. The data speaks to me. It's not my personal opinion. It is what it is. So you could see if we connect all the lows of Bitcoin here, you notice how Bitcoin keeps on hammering on this upsloping trend line. Same thing on the top. It keeps hitting the top, pulling back, pulling back. Here it pierced about a week ago, pulled back. Yesterday it pierced, pulled back. And today again it pierced and pulled back, the 38,000 level. So what this is telling me is if we can get a daily close above 38,000, you should get your next leg up on Bitcoin. On the other side, if we break below 36.5, 36.3, you then have to be cautious. Now, overall, I look at probabilities, and when you have a flat top with an upsloping trend line, probabilities favor further upside, maybe by about a 75 to 70% margin. So again, right now, even though it's struggling to break out, you do go in that favor. That's the angle that you would expect it. But just be aware, if it breaks 36.3, 36.5, that would be where warning signs would start to appear. there was so much hype over this spot ETF, right? We heard about the filings. I mean, there were just so many filings from different big institutions about Bitcoin ETFs that essentially it just created this grind higher. Shorts were too scared to short. Longs just kind of continued to accumulate. The idea is, again, some of these bigger BlackRock players are probably already accumulating. So all of that combined, I think, kind of makes sense why it's continued to grind higher. My big fear is this, and I'll give you the one case where I think this is the likely outcome. I think we're going to get the approval of the spot ETF. You're going to see this monstrous one-day big pop candle, and then I think that puts in a short-term top, and I think we actually sell off to the low 30s again following that announcement. So again, there's been so much buying going into it. It's almost like buy the rumor, and then the likely scenario, and we see this in stocks, is sell the news, and I think that's very possible on Bitcoin.
Soloway compared Bitcoin's daily chart to the S&P 500, noting Bitcoin's recent rally aligned with a risk-on surge in the stock market. Stocks weathered various challenges this year, including the Silicon Valley Bank collapse in March, causing concerns about the banking system's stability. Despite initial setbacks, stocks rebounded recently after reports of a manufacturing slowdown in November and positive remarks from Fed Chair Jerome Powell on inflation's decline. Meanwhile, Bitcoin surged on Friday, reaching its highest level since May 2022, marking a remarkable 130% yearly gain and positioning itself as one of the top-performing assets in 2023. Soloway planned to potentially short heavily around $48,000 to $50,000, but expressed a long-term bullish outlook for Bitcoin, considering interim price levels. Now, let's move towards the video.
Let's go to the daily chart of Bitcoin, and I'm side by side the S&P 500 chart. And what you did see, in all fairness, is while the S&P was selling off here, Bitcoin was bottoming and rallying back to the upside. Now, interestingly enough, notice the latest move in Bitcoin is coordinated with the risk-on move in the S&P 500. So I do also think that some of the upside, I mean, we've seen altcoins rally tremendously in the last month. I do think that's partially to blame for risk-on. Everyone is risk-on. It seems like the Fed is engineering this magical, perfect landing. Inflation's coming in. They could start cutting rates next year. I know we'll probably talk about that in a minute, but ultimately that latest move is correlated. This last move was not. And I think part of that, again, is when you get news specific on an asset that, again, the market cap of Bitcoin is not even as big as Amazon, right? So you have to say that news can directly influence it, and it can make it diverge from the S&P 500 for periods of time before it reverts back to that kind of risk asset. My positioning is mostly neutral. I have a very tiny, like pinky finger in the short side of Bitcoin up here, just in case it fails. If it pops up, I will go heavily short around that 48 to 50 level. But remember, folks, I'm a swing trader, so I'm in and out in a few days to a week or so. Where I am now on shorting it there, in a year from now, I probably will be long because I am a longer term bull on Bitcoin. It's just I'm going to play the interim levels in between. But right now, you look for that one final breakout here above 38, maybe a pop as high as 45 to 48. And then again, once that news out and you get that pop, I think honestly, you either trim back positions or you look to the short side. So one of the things to kind of keep in mind is that I'm very much level driven, right? And so once we broke above 30, 31, 32, now on a retrace, I actually look to buy it at that level. So this was resistance here. If we pull back into it, it becomes support. And so again, as a technician, it's all about the charts. The charts tell me what to do. I don't tell the charts what to do. Now, I will say this, we've talked about my downside targets of maybe back to 15,700, maybe 12, maybe 10. There is one scenario that can still happen, and that's if we get a major equity sell-off. So if the NASDAQ, for instance, dumps 50%, let's say we go into a much worse recession, inflation is still high, the Fed can't lower rates as much as the markets need them to, and equities really collapse, then I do think the risk-off trade does ultimately kill Bitcoin down to that lower 15, 12, 10 level, and that's the one scenario it could happen. Otherwise, honestly, I think the 15,700 level, if that doesn't happen, holds and is the low.
Over the last year, Bitcoin has shown a remarkable increase of 132.8%, with a surge of over 10% in the previous 30 days alone. News of the upcoming Bitcoin halving event, rumors about Bitcoin ETFs, and greater interest in crypto have prompted traders to wonder, should I buy Bitcoin? Is a Bitcoin bull run in the cards in 2024? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. If you found this content informative, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for the latest updates. Thank you for being here with us.